And we're talking now about distribution, because you talked about distribution in the last panel as well, and it's about the distribution dilemma. Why is it so hard to find distribution partners? Let's find out. And the host is Kylie Figueroa. He's a screenwriter and producer and lives in London, especially came for this festival here. Please welcome the crowd here on stage. Enjoy.
So I have with me, and I apologize for the butchering of any of these names, Pape Boye, super, Francis Nebot, okay, Wendy Bernfeld, and Richard Lorber, super. Pape is the co-founder of Black MicMac, France, representing France as well as Senegal. And Francis Nebot is the founder of IFind Pictures out of France. I'm going to start with these two, and then I'll introduce the two on the right accordingly, because it's meant to highlight the not only progression, but also the state of distribution at the moment. There are many traditional means, and there are also sort of newer, inventive means that are coming out. So I want to highlight that by first discussing the sort of standard and the current scope in terms of the basic standard practices. If you want to speak on that, Pape or Francis.
Well, to start with, I wanted to say that distribution starts with sales agents. Most of young filmmakers are obsessed by the films, but also forget about how to distribute the film. And being a sales agent is a job, a very complicated one. That's my first part is while you are building and thinking about your film, you need to think about the somebody who can sell your film to reach the distribution.
For sure.
Well, Francis, you want to add something about?
Okay. Pape, yes, first of all, yes, find an international sales agent. That would be the paramount. However, if we are looking at the picture of distributing African diaspora movies, it's bloody tough. It's more than tough because basically you need to tick all the boxes in the distribution. I mean, when I said all the boxes, it means airlines, videos, VHS, DVDs. I will come back to that because DVD is another way. Festivals, of course, but SVOD. The fact that Netflix and Amazon pull out a little bit has been a very big setback for most of the film producers. I know mainly Nigeria because this is where I am. This is my home ground brackets, okay? I know that it has been because with a streamer, you were able to recover. On top of it, when you are making a movie for 150K, 350K, 400K, and then you have to spend 50K in order. I did try to distribute Nollywood blockbusters, they're a big fan. But if you have to spend 30, 40K and you don't have a grant, how are you going to make the money? Because it's already with that, I could make maybe 1/3 of a movie, I can start a pre-production. So basically, you need to tick all the boxes. And you have to find of specific ways. If you have a movie which is being said like social themes, whether it is for the childhood position, the women in Africa, you have to think about universities and libraries. Because there, you can sell DVDs and you can make. There is one movie made in Madagascar in Malgache, in the local language. Most of the French-speaking or whatever region they are, most of them, the movies are being financed with TV5, Canal+. Then there is no, but then the guy made 20,000 just selling in university, Mediathèque, libraries in France, for instance. So I think we have to come back to some roots. And maybe, if I like to take the Nollywood industry, what was made great with the Nollywood industry were the marketers. The movie was made, there was a producer, there was a deal, they were making copies, and then it was distributed straight away at the beginning in VHS and then in DVDs. And you can find the movies in Brasilia, in Atlanta, 2 weeks after release. So maybe really to make, and finally, when I will leave the floor, you need to have a star if you want to make some money being driven. Otherwise, let's say, it's very difficult to get traction. You need to have one famous name, or like we did with Pape, we are analyzing the co-production of 3 cold dishes. First co-production between French-speaking Africa and English-speaking. And now we pitch it as it's a Burna Boy movie. So Burna Boy, when he went in Paris, he did the concert Stade de France, he did the teaser. So you need to have a one-star vehicle, we will track the movies. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. But please, top sales agent like Pape in the former life, or tick all the boxes? Sorry for
Much
this.
obliged. No, I appreciate the context you mentioned. I should just say that I recently finished my master's degree at London Film School in international film business. And when we first got there, they asked people to raise their hand and they said, what do you want to be in the film industry because of how many roles you could have? And so many people said, I want to be a producer, I want to be a screenwriter, director. By the end of it, they asked the same question. And there was a 44% switch to sales agents. And I think the reason is the waterfall, as it's called, probably. But in general, a lot of people definitely found their passion in the idea of international sales. And I just wanted to say, to dovetail what Pape was saying, you mentioned that if you have a film, you need to have it distributed. You need to see people need to see it. And to do so, you need a sales agent. Because in film and in film school, they always say, to have a film, you just have to have it made. But really, you then need to have the next incredible hurdle of the sales agents and the distribution, which is often not spoken of. But if we can go over to Richard, who is the chairman and CEO of Kino Lorber Media Group out of the USA, and maybe you can speak to me about a bit of the challenges and the hurdles experienced in distribution.
Thank you. Is this on?
Oh no, sorry, you have to.
Okay, well.
There we are. Just right up there.
Oh, technology. I accomplished the first thing today. First, I just want to be clear, the difference we talk interchangeably about sales agents, distributors, they're two very different animals. I think you know that. A sales agent typically sells to a distributor. If you're an international sales agent handling worldwide rights, you're trying to sell to distributors, territory by territory, or maybe one multi-territory distributor. So just to get that out of the way, we are distributors, principally. We have some titles where we have rights and we either act as sales agents internationally, but we have a library of 2,000 titles. Maybe 200 of them or so are available worldwide. The rest are North America. For those 200, we will be sales agent or hire sales agents, but principally we act as distributors in North America across all media. We're a 360-degree distributor. We release about 35 films per year theatrically. About 10 or so are repertory restorations. The rest are new releases, including feature documentaries, 2 of which were nominated for Oscars in the past 2 years, and narrative features. So we buy films from all the major festivals, and we are very much oriented toward award-winning, high-level, elevated, so to speak, art house fare. It's a very small business, but it's a small business in a large country, so it's a real business for us, and we've been at it for 45 years. I bought the company 16 years ago, and it's grown a lot. But the point that I want to make here in terms of any interest that any of you may have in terms of seeking distribution is it's more challenging than it's ever been for 2 reasons. The market has just gotten tougher because of the incursions of all the digital platforms and the challenges to theatrical releasing a film, which is where a film develops its identity and its pedigree and its trajectory in terms of value proposition throughout all media. And even as it's gotten more difficult, there are too many films. So, if any of you are on the fence about whether you want to be producers or whether you want to be distributors or sales agents, think twice about how hard it is to get films out there. And maybe the world needs fewer films, but more people who know how to make the connections between films that exist and audiences. And that's where we come in. We principally think of ourselves as curators. We're kind of gallerists of cinema. And our objective is to make selections of the best. We don't finance production, so don't come to me with scripts. We don't pre-buy. We don't get involved in anything that we can't already see, principally in a festival. And the reason is not because we're totally risk averse, but we as distributors depend upon pre-curation. We depend upon the values that other experts and influencers and people that we respect have a chance to process the quality of the films that are being offered to the world at festivals, in social environments and social media, and encourage us to take a risk to help find a wider audience. There are two kinds of distributors that you'll encounter, and I define them as two different models. The one model is those distributors who push the string forward, and there are others who thread the needle. I won't go into what I define those to be, but we thread the needle, which is to say, align with what the gentleman previously said, we look at all the various monetization opportunities for a quality film that speaks to the quality, the brand, the audience potential, and how we can make the film work across all media without the stroke of God benefit of having an output deal with Netflix or Hulu or whomever. Those days are gone. We had we ourselves had an output deal with Netflix in the early days for about 9 years, and that was very comforting because we could take risks and we know that if we screwed up, somebody was there to save our asses. Those days are over. We have to really have every film earn its keep on the terms of the merits of the case. So I'll pass the baton to Wendy or to gentlemen.
No, of course, Wendy, just one moment I want to say, in terms of the sort of small community you mentioned, we were also taught that distributors have a very small Rolodex of sales agents whom they normally work with just because of consistency and I guess reliability in terms of that. Would you say that that's the sort of small community you were referring to in terms of the engagement between sales agents and distributors as two separate entities?
You're asking me?
Yourself, yes.
Au contraire, we don't have a small group of sales agents we work with. We have a team of 3 here, and we're meeting with probably 40 different sales agents.
Sure.
In the 45-year history of the company, we've dealt with hundreds of sales agents, some of whom are long gone, as those of Pape's former companies and such.
Yeah, it took me 10 years to sell him a film.
And we're still friends. But there are new entrants all the time, and we have to be on our toes. So I would say there are probably a couple of dozen sales agents who are our preferred curators among the sales agents who we look to and we pay closer attention to. But we're meeting with new companies all the time at every festival.
Okay, that's super helpful to hear. And Wendy, you are the founder of Right Stuffs, an international company, although based out of the Netherlands, if that's correct. I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say in terms of innovative ways of reaching distribution. As someone who is quite tech savvy myself and always interested in the cutting edge of what's next on the horizon, I'd love to hear where you think things are at.
Great. Hi, I'm a Canadian living in Amsterdam. Is this working?
A little closer to your mouth.
Closer? Okay. And today's my birthday.
Woo! Happy birthday.
And I'm an old timer. I started in production and distribution at a traditional pay TV. And then over the years evolved to the digital sector. So I'm kind of, you'd say, the black sheep or an alternative approach to distribution. I'm not taking rights. Filmmakers or people we work with sign in their own name with the streamers, but we are doing a lot of the functions of distribution and sales, either in the region or out, but in international, so outside of the US. And in brief, what's odd about it is, say 90% of the people don't get a Netflix or Amazon deal, filmmakers. Where else can they go? Some of them have a sales agent, and after a year or two, the film moves to the back catalog, less heavily emphasized. Others don't have a sales agent, and they didn't get the big streaming deal. Where do they go? So we fit into that weird niche within a niche of focusing on the streamers beyond the big 5. So it would mean a tier 2 type would be a head-on competitor pissing contest with Netflix and Amazon, but they're not global. Example, Canal+, Mnet Showmax, Sky Showtime, Telefonica Spain. They're head-on buyers and funders, but you won't get 200 countries in that deal. And then a tier 3 type would be the niche art house, GLBTQ, documentary specialized, anime, thematic sites that are all over the world, buying and sometimes funding. But often they're not reached by traditional means because they're not here at Cannes. They're not at Berlinale. They're not spending the money on the Croisette. All of the buying I've done over the past 20 years has been almost always virtual, long before COVID. So being able as a filmmaker or a producer or rights holder to reach them is often in one page, not sending your entire film, a trailer, one sheet, and goddamn look at the site that you're trying to sell to. Not sending a horror film to a children's site. We all probably got 500 emails here from Cannes. Most of them you don't even read. If your first paragraph, which is alternative approach to distribution, if your first paragraph says, hey, we see you have this refugee movie on blah, blah, ours is a good match for your programming, those mails get read, whether you have a rep or you don't. And the only other alternative approach I'd say is DIY or hybrid. The word hybrid distribution is where we sometimes work with sales agents invisibly or with distributors who are open to either splitting rights or sharing activities. They may not want to focus on a tier 3 GLBT buyer because there's not enough money in that one deal, but they'll participate and receive a percent because they are the rights holder. So being able to look at distribution as 100% of zero is zero, and looking at less about who has the rights, but where can you reach new audiences in non-exclusive cumulative ways is how to best approach it, I think. So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
I had one thing I wanted to add on Richard.
Sure, please.
Behind his back here. I adore Richard and his company, but he failed to mention that aside from distribution, he's a god of platforms. Have several SVOD platforms, subscription VOD, that are art house focused. So that would be an example. But Richard, do you only put on your platforms the films you have rights to, or will you buy from third parties?
Thank you for allowing me to avoid the shameless plug, and I'll compensate you later for that. The fact is that we launched the platform Kino Film Collection about a year and a half ago, and right now we're drawing on our own library of some 2,000 titles, but we're selectively going back to some of our past relationships and friends, and we'll be bringing new titles on in the next year or so. We also have a streaming TV series streaming site which focuses on international television programming, episodic programming from all over the world called MHZ, as they say here, Choice, or MHZ Choice, which has about 400 series, things like Babylon Berlin and The Killing and The Bridge and Un Village Français and major international war horses in some cases of episodic television.
That's super. The Bridge, the Nigerian film, is that correct? Or is it...
Bridge is originally, it's a Nordic noir. It's a
TV series.
Okay.
Sweden.
Apologies.
There are several other things called The Bridge.
Of course, yeah. Sorry, I just wasn't sure if you were referring to it. I met the director of that film recently, so I wasn't sure. Now, I want to say thank you, Wendy, for regarding the sort of nuances of the change of scope and also the need to be more bespoke in terms of who you're actually approaching. I wonder if you, Pape, could express anything you've seen, whether it be through sales agent, your experience as a sales agent or otherwise, for aggregators that can help find the right sales agent and the right distribution for your content. I ask actually in particular for you because there is a aggregating service called MySmash Media, another plug. I'm not a part of it, I'm just using their services, and it's an aggregator, and I've applied for a couple of my scripts for Black MicMac, and I am wondering in terms of how you've seen the approach of sort of new technology or new aggregators in any of these fields?
Yeah, funny question because I look young, but I'm a very old school guy. I like being...
Join the club.
Yeah. I like being direct. You know what? I have a BlackBerry still.
Nice.
I don't want... the point is for me is having a direct connection with people, with filmmakers. it starts with the relationship and the feeling that you have with him first.
Sure.
I'm not interested in projects sent randomly. I don't want to hear that story out from the filmmakers himself. For me, it starts with a connection and a conversation, because making a film it's like a 3-year deal, right?
Sure.
And to me, the first benefit is the relationship that I have with the filmmaker, and that's how we do good stuff. And not so no, I'm not interested in aggregators. If you ask me the question, and I work directly with filmmakers.
Okay, that's very interesting. I will, I will personally give you my contact as well afterwards, just to avoid the aggregation. Thank you. And I should say, Francis, you mentioned. Pardon me. You mentioned your experiences and quite a direct form of approaching it for sales agents. We were told and recently taught that the pre-sales are dead, are of the past. How much would you say you work in pre-sales, and how much is it true that it's a dead form?
That's a good question. Well, I don't have the experience of Pape. All I know is that we've been doing a couple of 3 good movies with Juju Stories, Mami Wata, so we didn't have any pre-sales. All we were able to get was to get some grant from Red Sea and OIF, which was the first, because for a Nigerian movie to be getting some French funds was quite great. So pre-sales is quite, it works well. I mean, I'm speaking from the French side that I know. I mean, if you look at some movies like the Three Lascars, which was the best-selling Burkinabe comedy in Africa, it's 80,000 tickets in theaters, but it's a big number for a movie. Basically, it's a pre-sales deal where you have, it's always the French channels. You have TV5, you have Arte, you have Canal+, maybe Media One now. So it works. When you have to go to the English-speaking area, it's a bit more cumbersome. I mean, we didn't get, well, unless, I mean, no, I shouldn't say like that. I don't know, but the movie which is now in Cannes from Nigeria, My Father's Shadows, you've got Eyewitness, the Irish guys, you've got Movie who got the rights, and then you've got British Film Institute. So I would say it works maybe as well, but me as a Frenchman, I didn't have so much of the access to this, but It doesn't mean that's why we are working with Pape and some other people also to get that access. So pre-sales is pretty, in fact, a French-speaking movie in Africa will be mainly financed with all the pre-sales, but they will take 3 years, right? So exclusivity, then it's difficult to make more money out of it. But at least the film is being made. The director and the producer will have a little fee, but then there is no more add-on unless they go to Richard or Wendy whatsoever. But I have a question for them. How many African films do you have on your platform, and how many have you taken?
That was my next question.
Because for me, I can see it's bloody tough, really. But I'm still fighting. We are doing, and we will keep on doing. I will never surrender.
We have mainly been focusing on films by American black filmmakers and black films that have been lost to history for whatever reason, which we've recovered and restored. And right now we haven't released the major films of Charles Burnett, very important American black filmmaker, Killer of Sheep, Annihilation of Fish. We're playing them in theaters all over the U.S., restored and glorious 4K. Most recently, films from Africa, we released Neptune Frost, Saul Williams' film, very important film. But we're not being introduced to a good flow of films coming from Africa. For whatever reason, no one's knocking on our door, and we're not going out of our way to find them, obviously. So I'm here, okay? But, but I just want to say that it's as everything I said before goes for films from Africa. There's no one in the U.S. clamoring for films from Africa. I wouldn't say they're clamoring for films from black filmmakers either. But we need that level of pre-curation. We need those films to be seen at festivals like this. We need films to have support from social media and influencers. So give some thought to how your films from Africa are being, in effect, pre-curated before you bring them to me to do the rest of the hard job of getting them in front of audiences.
And just for me to clarify, I don't have a platform. I'm the buyer or the seller, depending on who. But for example, we work with the Black Screens Office in Canada, the Indigenous Screens Office in America, and I'm always getting the hard jobs of the films that don't necessarily immediately have Schwarzenegger and get picked up for 200 countries. And it really requires a tailored, curated approach per film. And so that may only mean that you're approaching 8 platforms of 2,000, but they will be the 8 that have titles like that or emerging talents on them. But it is really difficult, particularly now, I will say, in Europe, where I'm based. The quotas are encouraging country of origin as the main quota. So it used to be that I could sell for somebody out of Canada, a Black film or African, but now they'd rather take a European-based or an African-based to fit within the EU quotas. I don't know if you're experiencing that. And American titles are also being minimized in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many points I want to touch on from what Francis said to yourself. But mainly, I think that is one of the main reasons why efforts like AfroCannes and other efforts in terms of promoting the diasporic African voices are so important. Because as someone spoke of yesterday, I was born in the States, but I lived in England and Germany, and my identity has always been Black, no matter where I've been. And I think that is representation of what the African diasporic creatives and filmmakers represent. So in terms of Black filmmakers not having much of an appetite for it, well, we've seen people like Ryan Coogler with his incredible success from Fruitvale Station all the way to Sinners, and of course Jordan Peele from Nope and Get Out and so on, and dozens more surely. But just to say that I understand where you're coming from in terms of the platform and in terms of distribution. But I wonder in terms of the Francophile areas you mentioned, the biggest issues that I've experienced in terms of my research of South Africa and in the African, sub-Saharan Africa in general is infrastructure, a lack of infrastructure for I think it's, my numbers are terribly off right now, I think it's 1 for every 1,800 Nigerians you have a
237 Nigerian theatres, so for a population of 270.
There we are. So it's roughly for 1,000 or something of that nature. Yes, exactly. It's incredible when you think about it. There are more theaters in South Africa than the entirety of Sub-Saharan Africa combined. It's a massive problem, and obviously that's more than a 3-year issue to resolve. That's investing with outside finances as well as government opportunities, as you mentioned, in terms of incentivizing and quotas. But I wonder, in terms of Pape or Francis, perhaps you can speak to this. In terms of sales agents, do you have, perhaps it's hard to say this, a personal connection to someone who is trying to make a truly authentic, from their region, from their country, and does that sort of speak a level beyond the affectability of the distribution of the film?
I'm not sure if I understood your question.
Sure, I probably word it poorly. Is there any way that you can see the passion of someone who is from a certain region trying to tell a story of that region, and that sort of speaking volumes and being another a sort of a driving force to taking that on as a sales agent? If you can see that it's telling a story of that local area, of somewhere they're from, their country, their story.
Not necessarily, but my first option would be what is authentic.
Sure.
I like authenticity, but still, a French filmmaker is still able to make a film in Senegal.
Sure.
Even if he doesn't live there. I work with a financier who is half Scottish, half Ghanaian. Never been to a country, but is able to appreciate a script out of the culture of a country, right? Sure. So, but yeah, my first option would be authenticity, but still not reserved to those people, I would say.
Okay, and obviously, Francis, I'd like you to speak on that as well. But I was mostly, again, speaking from a South African perspective. There is a great many incentives, co-production or otherwise, where it must be an executive producer, or not only an executive producer, but a filmmaker, cinematographer from South Africa, from that sort of region. So it seems as though that's more of a quota rather than an incentive to bring authenticity. But I wonder if there's any moments where authenticity for yourself is more pressing than quotas.
I would come back to authenticity and also to relink. As I said, making a movie is a small family for a couple of years, and hopefully you are in good terms after the movie is finished. But then definitely authenticity, and people will believe. If I take the example, for instance, South Africa, you got gravel road distribution, and they are good, but they have teamed up a special relationship with a very talented Ghanaian filmmakers, Peter Sedufia, and they brought on board Canal Plus. And we are working on the next project with them. So this means that you can really, it's a question of really getting the feeling that you have to believe into it, you have to go for it. Coming back to international agents with African movies, from what I've experienced, Mami Wata went to Sundance, got a prize. You go to Sundance, you got 10,000 sales agents, they want to grab a movie. There was another movie, The Weekend, was in Tribeca, but at the end of the day, what do? Not so much. Theater release are going to be peanuts because whatever marketing they will have to do, promotion is going to kill whatever the audience is. You don't recoup your money. And then they will rather go for MGs there and there. And I understand that. I understand because when you are doing 100 movies, you take MGs, you get 10 countries, but you need to have this movie. But are you dedicated to the movie that you like? Not so much. Tribeca, the guy, I wanted to distribute it in the French speaking. And it's tough. I'm in Africa because we have access to all Majestic, Pathé, Canal Olympia. He wanted me to pay 30,000 euro for the French rights, whereas maybe I will be lucky when I sell first I have to do a French dub. Sure. Then I have to sell it to Canal Plus, who is going to give me 6K. Then at the end of the day, well, it's obvious I was giving him money. It's not business. Of course. At the end of the day, the filmmaker and the producer, they are not going to be happy with you, and then you're not going to be in the game for the next movie. So it's a very tricky. I really believe we have to put more efforts, and I think, as we said, I will come back to that, explore everything. DVDs, I'm sorry to say, you go to France in Fnac and the Rue d'Antibes, they still sell DVDs, and you saw the streaming platform will kill you. So it's an old approach, but I think all the approaches are good for having the filmmaker, the producer here from Africa or the Africa. America, Black America is different, man. I mean, you can pull, if you have the budget and you have the big pre-sale with the broadcasters, maybe you can put a big name and a star, which will make the movie coming over. So, whatsoever. By the way, The Weekend is the horror movie based on the African one, the Nigerian one. Okay. Get Out.
Oh,
so it's a Nigerian version of Get Out. So,
nice.
But he didn't do the same results, unfortunately. But it's a good movie, very good.
I'll just add that what we've been hearing about authenticity is very essential to our view of what means a film can achieve. Last year in Cannes, we bought a film called Banel et Adama, which was a beautiful African love story and very poignant and touching. And it was a film that had huge amount of character and awards and such. And we released it nationally in North America, did very little business, but it's a film we're very proud of. It's a film that was talked about and it will live for a long time in our library. A film from previous years of, as I mentioned, Neptune Frost, advanced the concept of Afrofuturism. I'm still not sure what that means, but it's a very sexy concept. And we're all looking for the next genre aspect of something that relates to a national and indigenous community. So if you're looking at films or making films coming from Africa, think about not just film being from Africa, but something that is adjacent to that can connect to other genres and to other categories that can open the film to a wider audience.
I believe Wendy wanted to say something, and then I'll say some more as well.
Oh, just an add-on to one of the earlier comments. Someone was asking about platforms that buy. I mean, if you don't go the traditional route of theatrical first, because sometimes you don't recoup, as you say, in theatrical, and you're willing to reach audiences in a different way through first subscription VOD and then ad-supported, there are many platforms that buy non-exclusively African stuff from Africa, even if it's not in your own region. So, one example in America in AdVOD, ad-supported, is Tubi. Tubi TV has a black focus. Now, I wouldn't put your brand new current movie from Cannes on that. That should be a much later window of library. But some of the subscription VODs like Film in Spain, well, we've talked about Canal Plus, not for Africa, but the Canal Plus Benelux, Nordic, Central Europe, all the rest, Sky. I mean, so these platforms will buy, but it has to be a good film. It can't just be African, and it has to fit their audience in that country. So there's this authenticity part, but also there's, if you're trying to distribute and reach new audiences, will they follow the story? Will it resonate?
Absolutely. And I also want to speak on something that I've personally heard from some guests here, as well as generally filmmakers from Africa. And that is just to say that it is difficult to be a creative, to be a producer, so on a film, knowing often that it won't make money, knowing that it's going to be a festival darling at your best case scenario. And that when you talk about things like sales agents, minimum guarantees, and so on, it's just not, it's a non-issue because it's not something they're going to be experiencing. And I think that this speaks to the sort of nuanced ways that you need to sort of penetrate through what has been the old system, or in some ways with DVDs or otherwise, reverting back to the older ways, which work better for some regions more than others. But I wonder if you can speak on any sort of new approaches technologically as far as like what's advancing there.
Well, it's too long a topic for 2 minutes, superficially, but if you use various DIY tools, Kinema, for example, or there are some tools, and I think what I'll do is I'll give Prudence a list of links where you, the producer, can market and promote your film or have event releases through that sort of a tool without having to go somewhere else. And it's quite popular in the States now. You know what I'm talking about, eh? Gather is one of them, GATHR, where you can book cinemas. There are a few like that. I'm happy to give a list. And being most of the platforms I was talking about that are not Netflix or Amazon, the digital tool is simply writing a one-page email. You do not need always, this is getting us out of our jobs, you don't need a rep often. You need a well-written cover note that shows the person receiving it in the first 2 paragraphs whether there's a match or not. Most of them will buy without having a rep. It'll be easier for you if you don't want to be sellers for a living, but it's not impossible. There's no technological barrier to just outreaching. And I wouldn't do it during the market in a MailChimp, but...
I totally understand. I just want to say, as the last closing comments, I'm going to ask you guys for a sort of a perspective of hope in the industry in your given sectors. But I want to start by saying one of my own, and it relates to a lot of what you guys were saying here, and that is the degree to which the African diaspora reaches so much more beyond just the continent of Africa. There was a friend of mine from the UK, but he will start by saying he's Nigerian, which is great. And there was a film that he was working on, and he has a plan for distribution and for exhibition for the cinemas within the UK. But he's also doing a joint release, and he plans on targeting Houston in Texas because of its Nigerian population. So that's reaching international markets while also still connecting to the African diaspora and staying true to your roots, no matter where they've traveled. And I think that's my message of hope in terms of distribution and exhibition. And I wonder if I can have 30 seconds from each of you for hope in your given sectors. Whoever wants to start first. Wendy, please.
Hope is just look beyond the usual suspects and take more ownership of what happens in distribution. Instead of abdicating or delegating entirely, have some awareness, and it will help you to interview your sales agents and platforms and find out what they're going to do with the film. Just take more control. You take control of your script, your talent, your writing, but distribution is key now. Okay.
Following that, if you are filmmakers, think through the whole process from making the film to finding audiences for the film. If you're raising financing, think about financing the distribution and the promotion of the film as much as the production of the film. And when you bring me a film that has that component in place, I'm going to be much more interested, frankly, in adding on to what you've already done. We depend upon the filmmakers to lead the charge in many ways.
Yeah, from what I've learned after the 25 years plus of being a sales agent, is African films are no different from any other Asian film or Latin American films.
Absolutely.
I mean, the only thing is to make the best film possible, and that's the way to distribute it.
Super.
Yeah, well, make the best film for the best audience. Maybe tailor it. I will, for Netflix, don't make a art house movies. If you want to sell it, make a TV type movies, but top quality, because that they are needed, because they are so much. Top quality, 90 to 110 minutes. 80% of the audience is watching a movie on smartphones. So if you think of that, make the movie what will be captured, then the guy, there is a TikTok. So, and top quality and going all over the places. But I think you have to tailor it, and I think the new technology might be of help as well in order to disseminate and tick. I want to insist, because there is no other way, tick all the boxes. There are certain communities which are more also sensitive, like the Caribbean communities, for instance. There will be more going seeing a movie. I mean, Zion in France made 400,000 tickets. First time movie, but doesn't make too much. But then behind was Jamel Debbouze as a producer who has helped also. So also think that you have to link it, not necessarily in the casting, but maybe with a producer or with a singer. Now that Burna Boy has made IFind, all the Nigerian singers, they want to make, they say that we're going to make a new movies. So this year. So I think you have to link somewhere in the background, not necessarily on the cast, because he's going to write. Get a star which can help you to sell it faster, and it will make life easier.
Merci. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to the speakers. Can you have a round of applause?